got to come up with your equations. And that is often the hardest part. Yep. Are everybody okay with this? And again, when you get your answers, go back to the words and check it. Check that these added up to whatever they were supposed to add up to. What was these investments? 70,000. Make sure they add up to 70,000. Make sure you take the interest, and that gives you one answer. And then you see that this guy has to be more, right? The Z has to be more than the other two. Make sure it makes sense at the end. And don't forget, you don't have to solve it my way. There's a number of ways to solve it. Just kind of keep your work organized. I find it helpful to me when I label when I take 3 and condense it to 2, I label them A and B. One of the reasons is if I have to go back and find them, or I have to go back and substitute into them to find the next variable, I find my equations a lot faster than trying to look through my mess. And sometimes I get it, you don't have a lot of space to work in, so you're kind of cramming it here and there, and it makes it worse. Can't do third today, because the math department is getting together for that NECSD day. You can't get this. What period do you have for you? I have 9. Do you want to come to the test room? You know where Ms. Chester's office is? I can do that. Okay. If anybody's free 9, I can go into the test room, period 9, by Ms. Chester's office. To 3, I can't do today. We're coming up with a great thing for the NECSD day. I'll just take a second, just a sidebar. Okay, so let's move on. All right, so let's work these equations. So work with me. Bart has 3 investments. So here's my let statements. First I got this. I'm going to start like this. 3 investments, what's my equation? 90,000, good. That's the money that I'm taking of my own and putting into this investment. These investments earn this income respectively, so I assign my interest. Okay. Bart's total income from these investments, here's his total income, is $6,700. This statement, I take all my investments and I multiply them by their respective interest rates, and I come up with my income earned. Same thing when you borrow money, it works the same way. How much are you spending here and spending here on interest paid, interest earned, same process. Okay, now I need one more because I have 3 variables. The income from the 9 investment, 9 is my Z, and I know it's income, but hang on to that thought for a second, exceeds the total income from the other 2 by 500. So who has more? The Z has 500 more than the X plus Y. So you have a number of choices you could do this. Since the 500 is here, I'm just going to put it like this. So we're going to start like this. Z is equal to X plus Y plus 500. Just start real basic. This is the income earned. So income, what else do I have to do? Put in the decimals. So my Z is 0.09, my X 0.05, my Y 0.07. Okay, and I got my third equation. And again, since these are lined up X, Y, Z, I would subtract this here and move my 500 to the other side. I would get this equation. Yeah, you got to multiply by some decimals in there, but that's not too bad. Once you multiply by your decimals, your numbers get a little bit better. And again, I wouldn't multiply by 100, just because you end up with so many zeros out here. One wrong count of zeros in your calculator is worse. Okay, are we okay with this part? With the 3 equations? That's the most important part, that you get those 3 equations. Obviously, if you miss the first one, you're going to make the same mistake on the second one. Well, you should scroll down. Where do you want me to go to? Okay, I'm going to scroll right down to here. I think I can make it. No. Here was my aim. You don't have to work it out the same as I did, so it's kind of difficult to go through mine versus yours. If something's glaring on yours, I can take a look at yours. Yes. Oh, could I look? Do I have the wrong answers up there? Yeah, that'll be fine. I'm not going to show them that because it doesn't happen all the time like that. This was That's like yesterday when we could eliminate X and Y at the same time. If we could have done that somewhere else, plug Z in somewhere else, it would have been fine. In fact, with yours right here, when we eliminated the X and the Y, we could have plugged your Z into all of them and then dealt with just X and Y. We did eliminate your X and Y that time. I mean, sometimes they just work out that way, that spot something nice. But
it's so easy to get these wrong.
Oh, tell me about it.
I wrote 0.01 instead of 0.1. It got the whole thing.
Oh, yes. Well, that's 10% versus 1%. That's a big deal, right?
So if you like combine two equations at the beginning and end up solving for one variable, you can't use that for that?
No, you can. Yes. Yeah, just go plug that back in and eliminate that. Kind of like, you know, when you do the thing with the circles? Like when F was 0, get rid of that F. For F is 2, plug in F is 2. And now you've got two equations with two variables. I mean, the problem with that is there's no set way to say this will always happen. It doesn't always happen. I mean, sometimes they do. You find those little shortcuts, and they work nicely, but sometimes they don't.
Wait, Miss Moore, what did you get for your B equation?
My B equation, did you use the same one as me?
I don't know.
I used the third equation and the income equation. Did you set this up where you moved the Z to the other side so the Z was negative and so was the money? This was my third equation.
Oh, your A is my B.
Yes, yeah, okay. Yeah, see, it's hard to go back to mine compared to yours just in case you didn't have the same ones. Yeah. I mean, and it's because this one's negative, it's probably nice to use with the original one. Just the way I happen to break them down. Yeah.
On the test, is it safe to assume for these questions that they're not going to go to like decimals?
No, it's not safe. You know what they say about assuming?
When you got B, when you got your B equation, like so up a little.
Up a little. This is what happens when I touch this thing. Over here? Yes.
Why did you just change the equation, like just change the negative to 0.1?
This guy? Because it came from this equation right here. This is the equation we found, our last equation, right? Where it exceeded, God bless you. But I need everything to be lined up X, Y, and Z. So I subtracted the 0.09Z here, and I subtracted this 500 here, so it became negative 500 is equal to 0.05X plus 0.07Y minus 0.09Z. Yeah, so you need them lined up in the same order. You think it's hard when you make a mistake? You should see how I have a hard time when you make a mistake.
So if we like make a mistake on the test, but we like kept going into the
Yes, I follow that through.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. These, I guarantee you, these I won't get back to you the next day.
Yeah.
No. I usually have a very strong cup of coffee.
No, we do like after.
Well, no, I need this on this marking period. I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think. It actually will be. Okay, so now, Roy is selling magazine subscriptions. These subscriptions have 3 different prices. So already we have our 3 variables, right? So set up your let statements first. Okay, now, here's a tricky one. Yes, he sold 3 fewer of the 29 than of the 26. So let me see who has more in this. 3 fewer of the 29 than the 26. So who actually is going to have more in this? The 26. God bless you, right?
Thank you.
So give me a number. Just give me a number. If he sold X, if he sold 10 of the 29 prescriptions, and he sold 3 fewer of these than the 26, what did my 26 become? 13. So try this first. So therefore, to get X and Y equal, what could I do? Y minus 3 or X plus 3. Either way you go. The fewer is kind of like the exceeds on the opposite end of the scale, right? It works not exactly the way the words look. So my advice is figure out who has more first. Because if you don't, everything's wrong.
So what is the X being the number of subscriptions, not the amount?
The X is the number of the amount sold. I wrote the amount sold, the number of subscriptions, the amount sold. Because they're going to ask for how many did he sell. I just wrote number of amount sold. You could write number of subscriptions, yeah. So now, that's an important statement. So either you're going to do X plus 3 equals Y, or you're going to do Y minus 3 equals X. I chose the Y minus 3 equals X. Okay, and the last one, if his total sales, yes.
I don't think that the amount for the subscriptions in the second group.
And because this is just the number that he sold. This is the number, and Anne Marie had a good point. I probably should have said number sold, not amount sold. Maybe number sold makes it better. This is the number that he sold of these subscriptions, not how much he paid for those, not how much money he made in those. Just he sold 3 fewer of these. So if he sold 10 of these and 7 of these and 4 of these, that's the amount that he sold, the number sold. Okay, the money he gets is this, his total income from this. His total sales is the money he makes. And he sold a total of 37 subscriptions. So 37 subscriptions, that's his X plus Y plus Z. The money that he makes, his total sales, that's when you got to multiply by how much each one was, right? So we take the X plus Y plus Z, and we put our money next to it, and we add up to our income. That X, we could automatically get rid of X. Automatically. And then you're going to have 2 equations with 2 variables. Or get rid of Y if you did X plus 3. If you did X plus 3 equals Y, then you eliminate Y automatically. Right? In terms of X. Combine your like terms. Don't work with all those terms out there. Combine your like terms and you come out with 2 very nice equations. Are we okay with this? X is 10, Y is 13. And does this work out better? From this one, he sold 3 fewer from here. Doesn't that make sense? He sold 10 of these, 13 of these. Aren't these 3 fewer than this one is? I mean, that's not a statement we normally say, 3 fewer than. But don't forget the word problems always throw something sweet at you. Usually we say we sold 3 more of these than this one. We never say 3 fewer of this one. Yeah.
Do you want us to like write out a word again for these, or can we just like?
If you give me this at the end, as long as you have your let statement, I can go back to your let statement and see this, but if they don't connect, then I have no way to know what your answer was.
So like you would have to say like,
You've got to give me a let statement.
So
And
you
so-
don't have to write like fully sold 7.
No, I don't need that, no. That's what you had to do in algebra on the regions.
Yeah, I was just making sure.
Yeah, no.
We have like a full page on it.
I know.
yeah, are we?
Okay. So the next one was a little challenging.
Oh, we should not have one like that.
Oh, you do have one like this.
Oh, what? One?
Yes.
Four.
Okay, so it's the same as the first one, wasn't it?
No.
All right. So a company placed this much money in 3 different accounts. How many variables do I have? So I'm just going to put this here first. X, Y, and Z. And my X, Y, and Z adds up to how much? 500,000. So there's my first statement. I don't care what the interest rates were yet. I just know that they took all this money and they put it in this thing and we invested their money. What did we invest it at? In these little short-term notes paying 5.5%, 7%, and 4.5%. They're still all decimals. That's okay. We still use the rule. Move it 2 places over. Okay. So, here we go. It placed in one account paying 5.5, so the 5.5 is the X. 3 times as much in the government bonds paying 7%. This is my Y. 3 times as much. So how do I figure that? Who's going to have more, the Y or the X? Well, so think about it. If you have, whatever, so let's say apples over here, and you have 3 times as much oranges, who has more? Oranges. But what are you going to multiply by 3? Oranges to get my apples? You're going to multiply 3 times the apples to get my oranges. The problem is this. I think this is where you're having problems. You need to make an equation. Your equation has an equal sign. I need to make an equation so that I can equate these 2 together. My Y has more, right? My Y has 3 times as much as my X. My Y has more. Start like this. Just write yourself a little line here. You need to make an equation. So if I need to make these 2 things equal, and my Y has more, let's say my Y has 12, and my, because I know it has more, right? How much does my X have if my Y has 3 times more than my X? How much does my X have? 4. Are these equal? What do I have to do to make them equal? Multiply this guy by 3. So I need to make this statement. Don't use these numbers yet. Don't work with these yet. Think about what happens in normal life, because that's where your problems are.
So the wording of it just like confused me, because like it doesn't
Yep.
say that there's 3 times more than 5.
Well, see, look what they did. They kind of have a run-on. They kind of have like a run-on sentence that explains all their things. Right. And you're right, Lily. We kind of have to break this down. They placed one account in short-term notes paying 5%. So this is the X. 3 times as much in government bonds paying 7%. So whatever I placed in X, I placed 3 times as much as that into my Y. Right? So give myself a number. If this is 5 and I put 3 times as much into Y, how many would Y have? 15. Ah, so you just took 3 times your X to give me your Y. Okay, now we got a third part. And the rest is my Z paying 4.5. Okay, so that, they didn't give me any extra information there. But then they told me my income after 1 year, simple interest for a year, was $31,000. Interest income, don't we take all the X plus Y plus Z, multiply them by their decimals? Okay, there's my third statement. You got to move your decimal 2 places. Don't lose these decimals. But yeah, this is a little bit of a tougher number to work with. Substitute those out first. You're going to get two equations with two variables. Okay. And whichever way you decide to do it, I did a substitution. I did substitution in here because I'm only in two variables and I can do one without having a fraction in it. That's what I usually do. So I substitute. You can do elimination as well, whatever works for you. The hard part about this one is all the zeros in this. They're high numbers. The zeros are like annoying because if you miss 1 0 in your calculator, 1 0. So we'll always count the number of zeros that you have. Now, remember, pull these out of here. Make sense out of this first. I think where your guys' problems is this. You see 3 times as much, so you automatically say 3 times y. But you forgot this equation has to be equal. How do I make this equal? Who do I have to multiply the 3 by? Not the y, because he's already 3 times as much. So what you're doing is you're reading the 3 times as much, and you're multiplying that guy by the y. You got to multiply the other one so they can make it an equal statement, right? I'm seeing that's happening because that's the part that everybody's off on. Okay. Substitution again works nicely in here. If you do elimination, not a problem. Let me get down to the answers. This is the part that I can't scroll. The answers worked out nicely. Good?
No.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But what you have to remember is you have to set up equations. So when you do it, first figure out what is it I'm trying to make equal to each other. That's where I think everybody's off. You see 3 times as much y, and you put 3y. Yep, that's what I'm seeing what's happening. So make sense out of it without this problem. If I have apples and oranges, and I have 3 times as many oranges as apples, am I going to multiply my oranges by 3? I got to set them equal. I need to multiply my apples by 3. Once you do that, that fits right in. God bless you. Because the rest of it is kind of the same. It always has like the total investment, x plus y plus z. It always has the total incomes, multiplied by their decimals. And whenever the other one, like the other one too, just don't put the decimals in first. Get who has more first. And then slide the decimals in. All right, I'm going to move on just because we need to get through these guys. Did we get one?
Yeah.
Anybody not get this? Okay, let's work out these equations. A store makes a 10-pound mixture of peanuts, cashews, and raisins. So there's my X, Y, and Z. And how much do they have to add up to? 10. There's my first statement. Okay, peanuts cost $1, cashews cost $2, raisins cost $1.50. There's my left statement. Here we go. The mixture calls for twice as many peanuts as cashews. Who has more? Okay, so hang on. Who has more, peanuts or cashews? So I need twice as many peanuts. If I put in 10 cashews, okay, listen to me. Look at that statement. I have twice as many peanuts as cashews. If I put in 10 cashews, how many peanuts am I going to have? 20. So who do I have to multiply by 2? Cashews. I have to multiply my cashews by 2.
I'm going to have to write that out.
I would absolutely start like this. And now I go back. I say, okay, my cashews was my y. My peanuts is my x. So I'm having to multiply 2 times x is equal to, oops, I probably have this backwards. Yep, I have this backwards. My cashews was my y. Times the 2 is my peanuts. My peanuts is here. So 2 times my y is my peanuts. Get that down first, because if you get that backwards, it's a horrendous thing. I'm sure they're not going to work out with nice numbers in them the whole way through. Substitute, again, You get one equation. Can I solve here and use substitution, solve for z? That's what I would do. I usually switch this up in case, you know, you have a variety of ways. You can eliminate, absolutely, eliminate z. Substitute, whatever you decide to do. But once you get that statement, you're good. And the total cost means don't I have to multiply by how much each thing costs? It's like my interest earned or my interest borrowed. Good. I just want to walk through the rest of these problems.
I just want to know if
Are you okay with this? Would we go with this?
I don't know why I got different things at first.
Parabola and a line can cross once, twice, or none. Remember when you get an x value, you need a y value. This is on a coordinate plane. You need an x, y value. You could, maybe you substituted the other way. You substituted for y. I just substituted for x.
No,
I substituted the hard way. If you substituted for y, you only have to substitute once.
Oh, I know what I did.
Did you forget to substitute for the other x?
No, I substituted, but instead of going out to, I just divided by 2. I don't know, I was tired.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can divide that by 2. 2y squared. Yep.
Then when you pull out the y, you have y minus 1. So then you get 1.
No, you get y minus 2. You get if you took this part right here and divided by 2,
Oh my god.
that's what happened to you. Y squared minus y. 2y. But again, if your process is sound, I'll find your mistake. Hopefully. And if not, when you look at it, you'll find it and say, Mrs. Moore, this is what I did. I really do work these out as best as I can. Again, we have a parabola and a line, so you could get one solution, no solution, 2 solutions. Is everybody okay with finding that parabola? I will give you the equation. Don't forget on the parabola,
Wait, what's the answer?
the answer? Good question. There's the A, B, and C. But don't forget, when the question says find an equation, you have to give me that equation.
What is the -1?
Yes, you have to give me that final answer that's boxed in on the bottom. Don't forget the one thing with this one versus the circle. The circles are all equal to 0. These are all equal to the y value. So just be careful. And another thing to be careful of is anytime you have a -1 that you square, remember squaring a negative is always positive. Yes, I see that a lot too. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to scroll down just to get the rest, and then I'll scroll back. This one was kind of nice, the 3-1.
Wait,
Yes, your answers were fractions.
Oh my god.
All right, that's your algebra, that's off. And your partial fractions, I don't have the answers, apparently.
I just didn't get any of the system of equations or any of them.
What's that? Well, you got to work on those. All right. I will post the answers.